Floods were no strangers to our town, but this one was different. This wasn't the usual seasonal surge of water that receded in a day or two, leaving behind muddied roads and soaked fields. This was a monster, an unforgiving force of nature that devoured homes, lives, and memories. It started on an oppressive July afternoon. The air was thick, the kind of weather where even breathing felt like a chore. The sky was a heavy grey blanket, pressing down on the village. Trees stood still, as if they, too, were holding their breath. By evening, the drizzle began. A soft, almost calming patter of rain that lulled us into a false sense of safety. But by nightfall, the calm had turned to chaos. The drizzle became a torrential downpour. The wind howled like a beast unleashed, and the river began to roar. I was in our small backyard, sitting under the jarman tree that shaded us during summer's scorching days. The first gust of wind shook its branches violently, scattering leaves and unripe fruits. That was when I knew something was wrong. Our house, like others in the village, was simple, made of mud bricks and supported by wooden beams that creaked under their own weight. It stood on the riverbank, close enough to feel the river's cool breeze in the evenings, but far enough to believe we were safe from its floods. My parents, who sold handmade bags for a living, were away in a neighboring village that night, staying at Mr. Sam's house due to the weather. That left me, my 9-year-old brother Ethan, and our grandparents at home. Ethan was a whirlwind of energy, always climbing trees or chasing stray goats around the village. But that night, even he seemed subdued, sitting close to Grandma as she prepared our simple dinner of lentils and flatbread. "Eat quickly," she said, her voice laced with concern. "The storm is getting worse." By midnight, the situation had spiraled out of control. A deafening crash woke us. A neighbor's roof had caved in. Grandma's urgency broke through our sleep. "Get up!" she cried. "We need to get outside. It's not safe in here anymore." The water was already seeping into our home, rising fast. Stepping into the yard, I froze. The river had overflowed, its currents raging through the village like an angry serpent. The cot in the corner of the yard floated aimlessly, half submerged. Ethan clung to my hand, his small frame trembling. Grandpa, always the pillar of strength, tried to stay calm. "Climb onto the cot," he instructed, tying it to a tree with a rope. "It'll keep you above the water." He lifted Ethan and me onto the cot and climbed up himself. Grandma followed, her hand shaking but steady as she held onto us. The hours that followed were a blur of terror. The water kept rising, the wind screamed, and the rain poured without mercy. Nearby, we heard the cries of our neighbors, desperate and helpless. Livestock bleated and squawked, their voices drowned by the flood's relentless roar. I clutched Ethan tightly, his tears soaking into my shoulder. Suddenly, a massive wave struck, breaking the rope that held our cot in place. We were adrift, carried by the current into the heart of the flood. Grandpa shouted for us to hold on, but the force of the water was too strong. The cot flipped, and we were plunged into the freezing darkness. I don't remember much of what happened next, just fragments of chaos. I remember the taste of muddy water in my mouth, the sting of debris against my skin, and the sound of Ethan's screams. Grandpa's voice rose above the noise, calling out for us to stay together, but the current pulled us apart. Then, through the darkness, I saw lights. Rescue workers in boats were navigating the flood waters, shouting to each other over the storm. One of them spotted me clinging to a piece of driftwood and pulled me aboard. "Are there others?" he asked urgently. I pointed to where I had last seen Ethan and Grandpa. "My brother! My grandparents! The rescuers searched tirelessly, but the flood had swallowed them whole. When they brought me to higher ground, I was alone. When the waters receded, the village was unrecognizable. Homes were piles of mud and broken wood. The fields that once grew rice and wheat were buried under layers of silt. The riverbank, once a place of joy and community, was now a graveyard of memories. My parents returned the next day, their faces etched with grief. They had survived the storm by staying at Mr. Sam's house, but the relief of their safety was overshadowed by the loss of our family. Ethan, the boy who chased goats and climbed trees, was gone. Grandpa, the man who taught us to fish and told us stories of his youth, was gone. Grandma, who held our family together with her quiet strength, was gone. We buried what we could, a few belongings, tokens of the lives we had lost. The rest was left to the river. Rebuilding was slow and painful. Dad took out a loan to buy a buffalo, and Mum sold her jewelry to purchase a few chickens. We moved into a temporary shelter, sharing the space with other families who had lost everything. Nights were filled with whispered prayers and the sound of children crying in their sleep. But life, as it always does, went on. The village rebuilt itself, brick by brick, though scars remained. Every monsoon brought with it a wave of fear, a reminder of the night we lost so much. As for me, I carry the memories of that night like a weight on my shoulders. I can't look at the river without feeling a pang of sorrow, but I've also learned to find strength in what we endured. The flood took everything, but it didn't take our resilience. This is not just my story. It's a story of countless families who faced the wrath of nature year after year. For them, survival is not just about rebuilding homes. It's about finding hope amidst despair, about holding on to the memories of those they've lost, and about praying for a future where such tragedies no longer occur. And so, I pray for the river to show mercy, for the rains to bring life and not destruction, and for the memories of those we lost to live on in our hearts, guiding us as we rebuild again and again.